All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Combiner Wars Legend Class Shockwave, a very cool little figure here. This has been one I've been kind of wanting to pick up for a while now. I didn't get him when Combiner Wars was actually happening, just because, like, at the time I wasn't really collecting, like, out-of-scale figures, but, you know, I've kind of grown my Shockwave collection sort of inadvertently over the years, and, you know, I've always kind of liked the look of this figure, and I heard a lot of good things about him at the time, so I finally just got around to finding a good, decent price for him on eBay, and yeah, he does not disappoint. He's a very cool little figure. I feel like this is actually probably my favorite of the, like, you know, legend/core scale Shockwaves that we've gotten. He's just, you know, they got it right the first time. I feel like he's a really fun little figure. He does turn into a little Cybertronian spaceship mode here, but it does have a little flip out handle in case you want it to be the, you know, classic G1 laser pistol. And then, you know, he does have like the sights up here, which admittedly is a little bit weird for, you know, if you're just having him as a spaceship, because this can't really fold away, but you know, it's fine. I feel like he's still a big flying gun, so the sights still relatively make sense, even though it's like you'd have to be looking through that for it to be relevant, but whatever. But yeah, no, I really like the alt mode, either as a laser pistol or as a little, you know, flying Cybertronian ship here. He does have like this ends up being like on the inside of his knees. He's very, well, I was gonna say he's reminiscent, but really the recent core class Legacy, was he Legacy? Yeah, I think that version of him is really reminiscent of this figure, and he has a similar thing too, where he's got like the on the interior of his knees there, he's got the sculpted blasters that end up in the barrel of the gun there. The transformation is pretty similar. It's not exactly the same, but, you know, definitely it feels like there was some inspiration taken from this figure. But yeah, no, he's a pretty cool little alt mode here. I don't love how his, you know, hands just kind of hang out asymmetrically out of the back here. Again, that feels like a cue that they took from this guy for the Legacy version, who also has that weird problem, but you know, it's pretty ignorable at this scale. And the other thing is, like, as we'll talk about this a bit more, but like as a handheld gun, he's actually not great, because this like extra like peg here, which is supposed to be, you know, stabilizing it for, like, you know, Combiner Wars, like combiners, right, for him to hold it. It makes it difficult for a lot of other figures to hold this, which we'll get into, but and then the peg itself is also very loose, so he doesn't actually function super well as a laser pistol for larger figures to hold, but as a little spaceship, I feel like it works pretty well. In terms of comparisons in this mode, just for the standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe, so you can see what they look like together for whatever that's worth. Here he is with Siege Shockwave in his alt mode, just so you can see what the two of them look like together. I feel like that looks kind of cool there. And then for a couple other Legend scaled guys, here he is with the other Legend scale / core scale Shockwaves that we've gotten recently, the Legacy version and then the Bumblebee Movie Studio Series version. And yeah, even in terms of alt mode, I feel like I like this one the best. Again, like in terms of like accuracy to any media, the like translucent pink is hardly ever used in media, but as a toy feature, I just feel like it looks so good with the purple, and yeah, just a little bit more interesting looking in my opinion than this version of Shockwave, who is, you know, mostly based on he's like, this guy's like a weird amalgamation of the Combiner Wars Shockwave and then the Siege Shockwave. It's like using the Combiner Wars Shockwave's transformation scheme, but flavoring it to look like the Siege Shockwave is very weird. But either way, you know, we've talked about this figure before, but yep, that's what the three of them look like together. And then in terms of using him as a handgun, like I said, he really is designed to go with Combiner Wars combiners, and especially with Bruticus. Like, he was actually marketed as being a member of the Combaticons, weirdly enough, even though, like, you know, in robot mode and stuff, he doesn't scale with them at all. And basically that's what this little extra sort of peg is for, is so that, you know, because the Combiner Wars limbs had the peg hole here, you know, it's like, okay, you can plug this in and then it still looks like, you know, he's hanging on to a handle here. I guess with the newer version of Blastoff, it doesn't really work, so you have to put him in Vortex's hand here, and that works relatively well, except the peg is just super floppy loose. Like, that does not stay at all. So it's like, you know, in most poses, like, you can definitely get it where it works out, but Yeah, it's I don't know. I don't understand totally why the tolerance on that peg was so weak, just because, like, you know, even if it worked well with like other figures, like it doesn't even really work super well with the Combiner Wars guys, just because it's super floppy. But you know, whatever. It's still, regardless of that, it's still a fun little figure. But yeah, bringing on a few other figures again to try him out with. We'll bring back on Sideswipe here, just as our kind of standard one. And he can hold him. You know, a lot of deluxes can when they've got like the slightly smaller hands there. Again, it's a not very tight connection, so it kind of flops around, but you can get him to hold him. Unfortunately, I was, you know, because he looks like scale-wise, he works better with like Voyager figures and larger. I was kind of hoping that he would work with Siege Shockwave, just because that would be kind of cool, but it doesn't really work, just because Siege Shockwave's hand is just a little bit too big there. Like, you can kind of get it in at an angle, but you know, that's not really useful for him to be holding it at like a, you know, 30-degree angle like that. But yeah, you can't actually get it to be going straight forward. Like, you can kind of get it in there a little bit, but then, you know, it's not actually like fully compressed in there. And it's a shame, because I feel like that's a pretty cool look there. I feel like, I don't know why, but it's like Siege Shockwave in particular is like the coolest one in terms of like holding other smaller Shockwaves. I feel like it always just like looks super cool, but yeah, doesn't work super well, unfortunately. But yeah, to get onto transformation, he's not too complicated. Like I said, he's pretty similar to, or, you know, really the legacy version is pretty similar to him, because he came first, obviously. But yeah, if you're familiar with that transformation, it's pretty similar. Basically, you want to start with the barrel here and just kind of untab it like that, and then open up the legs here, and then just rotate them around on this joint here, the thigh swivel. And then you want to take these joints here, and instead of like it flipping into the body like the legacy version, they're just on a little joint like this, where they can kind of you know, sit up like that into the body, compress up like that. And then you take the like fins from the side and just rotate them down to be the feet there. Then you want to take the this whole back section here, and it will untab and also untab from the armature that the handle is sitting on, and just fold out to the side like that. And then his elbow is kind of double hinge here, just like that. And then you want to take this whole section here with the handle and then the scope and everything like that, and it will just flip to the back, and then the handle sits on his back like that and flips at his head. And then I usually find that like it doesn't quite flip the head out all the way, so you have to kind of like pull it up a little bit more, so this panel is actually totally flush on the outside. But yeah, there we have Combiner Wars Shockwave in his robot mode, and yeah, he looks great. I really like the look of this guy. This mold also was used as a BotCon version of Reflector too, even with like a sort of fan-moded little camera when you combine three of them, which, you know, it kind of worked relatively well, but I definitely feel like it works best as Shockwave. I love his tiny little head sculpt there. It's very it's very cute. But yeah, no, I really like the way that the translucent pink like was used on this guy. I just feel like it makes him look a little bit more, you know, fun and interesting at this scale. But in terms of articulation, he's got some pretty fun stuff going on. He's got a ball joint at the head, and it's got a pretty expressive range, honestly. Like, it's got enough of a, you know, range there on the head that you can get some decent tilt side to side. The shoulders are on ball joints, which can rotate around like that and go out to the side. He also has that transformation joint, so you can, you know, use that hinge to go up out to the side as well. He's only has a ball joint at the elbow, which is what gives him his bicep swivel here, which works pretty well, but it only gives him about 90 degrees of bend, which, you know, still works relatively well. And he's just got the little, you know, sculpted hand there, the hand cannon there, rather than, you know, having one that like pegs on. So you can't have him with like symmetrical hands if that's something that matters to you. He doesn't have a waist joint, unfortunately, but, you know, that I wouldn't really expect it at this scale. His hips can go forward and back and out to the side. He's got a thigh swivel. His legs, because of how it folds up, are pretty hollows, but that does at least give him a pretty deep knee joint there. And then the feet can only really tilt forward. And then the other bit is like this transformation joint I find to actually be pretty helpful in terms of like, you can give him the sort of like sassy hip thing where he's like putting his weight on one leg, which is, you know, not something you see all that often in Transformers. The only other one that I can like immediately think of that does it is Combiner Wars Scrapper, who can only do it to one side just because of like how he utilizes the ankle tilt for for Devastator. But it's a pretty helpful joint, honestly, just getting a kind of dynamic pose. I guess in terms of characters, Shockwave is like one of the ones that you wouldn't really want to have like a, I don't know, kind of like sassy pose or whatever, but still I enjoy that he can do that. It makes the figure a little bit more fun to mess with, just in terms of like, I don't know, giving him like expressive poses and things like that. It's just, kind of works. And not a lot of figures can do that, but because of his like joint setup with how it, flips up for transformation, he can accomplish that, which is kind of cool. But in terms of comparisons in this mode, here he is again with Sideswipe here, just for that standard size comparison. Obviously, no scale there. Here he is again with Siege Shockwave, so you can see what the two of them look like together. And here he is again with the like other core / legends scaled versions of Shockwave. And I definitely think that he's my favorite one of the three. I mean, this is a really good figure. I like him. But yeah, it definitely is like, he feels like a better version of this guy who, like, in my opinion, felt a little bit lackluster. But turns out they've just done it right the first time. And I really like this figure. I definitely think that he's overall the most versatile of the three of them. And not a whole lot else to say about him. He's a fun little toy, a nice little kind of legend / core scale Shockwave. He's got a fun alt mode, even if it doesn't function super well as like the laser pistol. It's still a fun little spaceship. He's got a great looking robot mode, pretty, kind of dynamic articulation in terms of like the way the hips work and how expressive the head can be. It's just, it feels a little bit wasted on a character like Shockwave, who's supposed to be kind of emotionless, to have him have all the like expressive joints, but still, it's something that I still appreciate. But that's pretty much all there is to him. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Combiner Wars Legend Class Shockwave.